All right, we're on live. All right, Colin and I just got through playing Maurice, which is actually one of my new favorite miniatures games.
Oh yeah, probably Sam Mustafa's finest war game that I've ever played.
So. Yeah, I like it so much that I'm very tempted to paint this many miniatures just to play this
Oh, absolutely. No, honestly, 10 millimeter Old Glory strips are actually very easy to paint.
Yeah.
They look like they'd be daunting to paint because there's so many soldiers in each unit. So I put 2 strips per base, and the bases are 1-inch square. I've seen some people put three strips on each one, which is probably more historically correct if you want to represent the 3 lines that were typical of the 18th century. But you know, it saves on painting and saves on the miniatures to stretch your budget a little bit. If you went with 1 strip piece, I just don't think it would look very good. But the key to painting these figures is to paint the strips before you mount them on the bases. So each unit is 4 bases. There's 2 strips per base. That's 8 strips total for each regiment. So on 2 tongue depressors, you can fit 4 strips. So with 2 tongue depressors, you can fit all 8 strips. And so the key to doing this is you can spray paint them black. Some people like to spray paint them black. I prefer spray paint them white and then give them a dark brown or black wash to get into all the crevices and things. And then the key is just don't think of painting individual soldiers, but paint strips. So start with the pants. So like on the pants here, this is the Gardes Françaises. They had red breeches and socks, or at least, you know, I don't really care what the socks are. I just paint the whole legs red, and so I just go straight across, and then I do that on all 4 strips on one side, and then I flip the tongue depressor over, and I paint the red legs on the other side. And then you do the same thing with the jackets. So it's easier to paint the jackets on top. And then you do the same sort of thing with like the hair, for example. And then usually after the jacket, I'll paint the strap where the cartridge belt is, and do stuff like that. The only thing that was tedious on painting these was the hat lace, because that really stands out. So I had to paint it and then usually touch it up with the black of the hat. So they're actually very, very easy to paint compared to 15s and 25s because you're just going for an impressionistic look. You're not looking to paint every little detail on them.
I saw a guy used Risk figures to do this. And
yes.
Some people even like red and black, which is enough just to play it.
Sure.
But this game is so much fun. I would definitely recommend if somebody doesn't want to paint, you know, they could do something like that. The historical feel of this game is
Yeah.
awesome. You know, like the way the units were moving, the way they move in line and turn and face.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. The cards are pretty awesome. I don't know if you watched the whole video of like us playing and things like that, but that was only half the game. So that's probably my biggest pet peeve with the game. We played for 6 hours.
Yes.
It was awesome. It felt like 30 minutes each night. It goes by quick, and that's, to me, is a sign of a good game. It's very rare you can find a 3-hour game that feels like half an hour.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Always something happened. Very interactive, back and forth. Like you attack, you do a volley, I volley back, and all the cards have different like values and things like that. And there's little graphical representations that tell you what you can do and when you can play that card. There's events that can happen in the game. There's your command radius. So you play this card to activate a unit within 12 inches of here. Certain events, certain cards let you activate units without that. But for the most part, you got to keep your one leader close to your units. I got too far spread apart. He was running back and forth. And I was spinning cards like crazy trying to activate units and then getting the leader back over to the other side. And by the time he would get there, the guys would die.
And this is only a 4-foot table for armies that are using a 1-inch frontage. So it's not really that wide, but absolutely it's difficult to control an 18th century army. That's spread out. But you know, sometimes you need to protect your flanks. But what Charles is describing, that each card has 2 uses, basically. You've got the command span, which allows you to carry out your plans when you choose a command action. But then you've also got the effect on the bottom, and it's part of the fun of the game, I think, is that each card has two uses, and you're often placed on the horns of a dilemma trying to decide whether or not you want to use this card to carry out your actions or save it for later for its effect, because you could see how that using it for effect would just be so cool and allow you to do more powerful things.
Almost every card is good in some fashion.
Yeah.
And then, like we talked about earlier in the game, I don't know if you watched it all, like I said, but the sequence of play is really easy. There's a it's your turn. You choose whether to do a volley phase or not. I have some cards that could invoke a volley phase and force you to do a volley phase or cancel it. And then you choose what action you want to do after the volley phase. So attacker would do the volley, defender would do his volley, and then you go to the choice of orders. And so different orders have different weights. So like a charge, you wouldn't get to do a card, but you would get to attack the enemy, like brush up and do a melee with them. March, you would get one card, and then you might have to use a card to activate the leader
or even more
command radius to get there.
Yeah, or even more cards if the unit, the force that you're trying to activate is far from the leader. Yeah.
And then you could activate a force within 2 inches of each other in a similar terrain, right? Right.
Well, yeah. So a force is defined as all troops of the same type, like infantry or cavalry, within 2 inches of each other in the same formation and in the same type of terrain. So if you have units split up by rough terrain, for example, then that's going to split the unit into 2 separate forces or more forces. So it benefits you to try to keep troops of the same type, like infantry, for example, or cavalry, or artillery even, to keep them close to each other, and that way you can move them more economically and move them all together by using maybe just one card or maybe just 2 cards if they're far away. And then the other thing that Charles was talking about is after you make your command choice, then if you want to move your leader to, in the future, move or activate your troops more efficiently, you can spend any one card still in your hand to move the leader as far as you need to.
And that's after you do your action.
That's right, after you do your command choice, because
so you've got to pay for the activation.
So you can't move the leader first in order to then get really close to the troops that you want to move this turn. So if he's not already close to them and he's not close enough to activate them, then you have to spend the card to move him so that you can then activate them on the following turn.
Then you can do a bombard, which is basically shooting your artillery. It seems like
distance.
4 inches is the danger zone for infantry, cavalry, and these guys. These guys get to fire a canister at 4 inches on the volley phase.
And that doesn't count as a bombardment action. That's just part of the volley phase. Yeah.
That's cool. And then you can do a rally. So as you do damage to a unit, you're going to always roll 1 dice per unit for the most part. Unless you get a special card or something like that. So you've got 4 units here. You're going to roll 4 dice for those. And you're going to hit on 4 5s or 6 6s. And then you're going to modify those for the different situations that you're in as far as,
if the target is in cover. Now, this unit that he picked here is actually a march column. So this would not have been able to shoot. But let me just put it into a line formation. And then put let's put an English unit in. Those are other French units. Let me just put it an English unit straight ahead. So if this unit here is undamaged, then I'd be rolling 4 dice, and I'd be looking to score a 4, 5, or 6. If my unit had been disrupted with 2 or more disruptions, basically the rule is if the number of disruptions is half or more the number of bases in that unit, it counts as a disrupted shooter. So if I have 1 disruption, I don't count as a disrupted shooter. But as soon as I have 2, then my 2 hit rolls are penalized by a -1. So instead of hitting on a 4, 5, or 6, I'm hitting on a 5 or 6. So it's more difficult to hit.
And so as a reaction, I could play my favorite card to play, is the thick smoke card. So that modifies that by 1. It's very simple as far as how it modifies.
So if he plays the thick smoke card and I'm also disrupted, then instead of hitting on a 4, 5, or 6, disrupted shooter makes me a 5 or 6. and thick smoke makes me a 6, which means I'm much less likely to cause any damage. So rolling these 4 dice, I mean, the 5s would have been hits even with the disruption, but with thick smoke, I don't score any hits.
And then you roll these 2 hits for 2
Right.
disruption. Once you get to 5, it goes off the board, and then you roll for your morale on the game. So
That's
it's
right.
a very well thought out game.
Yeah.
We talked about rally. Basically, is you're trying to get the disruptions off. You draw 2 cards. You activate you take the leader command radius and play the number to activate that unit. And then you roll 1 dice for each disruption. So this would get, this is a 2, so you get 2 dice rolled.
2 dice.
4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, and if rolling a 2 or 3, I wouldn't recover any of them.
And some cards let you change that modifier.
Yeah. So the important thing is, too, there is no rally phase. Rallying is just an action that you can choose.
Right.
But in doing so, you forego any other choices. You can't, you would be giving up the chance to bombard with your artillery or charge with your cavalry, or do a march action to try to get around somebody's flank. You're constantly having to make a choice over any other choices, and that's what makes this game so much fun, among many reasons.
And the last 2 actions are passing, which basically you draw 3 cards. You don't do anything. You can still do the volley phase, but you pass. And that builds up your hand to give you more reactions to certain situations. As the defender in the beginning of the game, I really like the pass option to help build up my hand.
Yes.
But I found out I was burning them just as quick to react to things because I was passing. And then the last one is play an event, which you don't get any cards for that, but if the card has an E on it, you get to do that event, and it's pretty cool. Some of the things that happen in there.
Yeah.
So I like the game a lot.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do Command and Colors, Napoleonics, and miniatures, but after playing this, it makes it a moot point.
Yeah.
You don't need to. It's like
no, you really don't.
The miniatures game
that
I like right now.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you could come over and play this game with me.
Yeah, it's good.
It's been too long.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Good game.
Very good game.
Closer than it's been in a long time. I think it's probably the closest game we've ever played.
Yeah. I mean, I was ahead. What was it? 12 to 7 at one point?
I think you had like 12 morale points to my 7.
Yeah.
And then we got down to where I was using my last card to charge you, and I destroyed your last unit, which just got rid of your last morale point. But that is so close.
Move when you were coming from.
I never moved my cavalry over here because they were too far out of the action.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could have moved them. I mean, I could have made that choice, but I chose not to because of the other things that were happening in the center here. So
yeah, that was a tough thing to decide to face. Do with something with what you got, or try to get something else into play.
Oh yeah.
Because you had a massive infantry coming up against this cavalry here, so it got really tight there for a while.
It really did.
And we were down to 4-4, and then it went down to 4-1.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. So I mean, unlike Napoleonics, it's not quite so dangerous to go up against cavalry with infantry because the cavalry were not as powerful as cuirassiers and such in the Napoleonic period. They weren't shot cavalry like they were later on.
Yeah.
And so the reason, because for example, there's no penalty for infantry not in square. That just was not an issue this period.
Mm-hmm.
But the other reason I was coming at you fearlessly with my infantry is because I had muskets and you didn't.
Yeah.
So, I think if you had pulled your cavalry back, like retrograde and gotten out of the range.
I almost did that, but I thought I didn't want to do that to the game.
Oh.
Me just backing up and we're down 4-1.
And then just waiting for nightfall.
I would have pulled out, but I wouldn't.
That would have been the reasonable thing to do, but it would not be the dashing thing to do.
Right.
So,
that must be very dashing.
Yes. All right.
All right. Thanks for the game.
Thanks for the game
It was very good.
Yep.
Yeah, I like